Morning, friends. It is Sunday, the 81st day of Russia's invasion into Ukraine. And I'm jumping on earlier because we've got a huge day ahead of us. We've got our service in just a little bit, and we've got some friends getting married. And so I'd really appreciate your help in getting the word out. Every time you share, every time you like, every time you comment, it makes a difference. And so, especially when I'm jumping on earlier, every bit of help helps. So we've got a lot to be rejoicing for in the Lord for. There's so much that is happening. We've got to continue, even as fatigue is setting in with so many, we've got to continue to strengthen ourselves on the fact that here we are at day 81, and in so many places, Russia not only is not going forward, they are going backwards. Praise God. Let us fight. You know, one of the most amazing points in the Bible is First Samuel chapter 30, where David is facing the loss of everything. His own men want to stone him. Everything, their entire families, everything has been taken from them by these Midianites, and his men want to stone him, blame him for it. And he said he strengthened himself in the Lord, and then they went and they overtook the enemy and they recovered all, not just all the enemy had taken from them, but all the enemy had taken from everybody else. And that's what we believe is happening here, that Ukraine, in so doing, is going to take back everything that the world's oppressive powers have been taking from the world for the last 30, 50, 100 years. Whether the Soviet Union, whether communist China, whether the Islamic states, God is on the move and the gospel is moving forward. And so how's that happening? Let's just talk really specifically the ways that's happening, the ways the breakthrough is moving forward in Ukraine. One of the things is, we mentioned this a couple times over the last few days, where in Lugansk, Russia has consistently failed to take that bridge, that river crossing to encircle Severodonetsk and Luchensk, and at massive loss, losing two whole battalions. They attempted to call up a third battalion to try a fourth pontoon river crossing, and they refused. What? An entire battalion refused. They refused to be cannon fodder. Praise God. In fact, one of the things the Ukrainian army and military said, this is the most absurd level of stubbornness, because they kept trying the exact same place, the same way, and with the same results every single time. The Ukrainians have just obliterated them. So another thing is, there have been mass evacuations out of the area around Mariupol. There was a huge caravan of about 500 to even 1,000 cars of people who've been trapped for 3 days trying to get out of the Mariupol area, and they actually finally got through to Zaporozhye. They had to go through Berdyansk and then back up, and every step of the way there's so many checkpoints they have to cross, and praise God, they got through. Right now, they are in the process of making massive negotiations. The lowest level, they're looking at possibly getting out 60 civilians and the most wounded out of Azovstal. Turkey has offered to provide means for a sea evacuation, so people would have to be evacuated from Mariupol to Berdyansk, and from there Turkey would get them out. These are real options, finally, for some real evacuation. Again, there's still about 100 civilians, 500 wounded, and maybe as many as 2,000 fighters. They're holding strong, but Russia is using phosphorus munitions. They are massive, fiery balls of doom. So continue to pray for Mariupol. But there's some really good signs of what God's doing in the midst. One of the things I read a fascinating story of a gentleman in his 60s who managed to get out with his dog, and leaving on April 23rd, walked all the way to Zaporozhye, got through so many things, those checkpoints. And we're going to hear stories in the coming days of supernatural ways that people got out. Guys, we cannot, yes, as the horrors and the atrocities come out, yes, they need to come out to keep the world paying attention, but we must strengthen ourselves on the supernatural things that are happening in the midst. Does that make sense? All right, in Kharkov, one of the great examples, Kharkov faced incessant bombing. And the reality is, even though there has been great loss of life in Kharkov, there is no way it should be as low as it is considering the amount of bombing that Kharkov has taken. And one of the ways that's happened is Ukrainian developers developed apps that allowed people to know in real time, almost as soon as the military knew that incoming planes or bombs were coming, to move. And so many people were able to get out of their apartments, get to bomb shelters in time because of this kind of ingenuity. Praise God. And the evidence is that the enemy is so on the run, running back across the Russian border, so pushed back that even though there is still some shelling from Grad MLRS missiles and things like that, over 2,000 people a day are returning to Kharkov. They're rebuilding already. Praise God. Praise God, it's happening. One of the things that the UK Department of Defense, Ministry of Defense has said is they believe that over a third of Russia's initial force that they committed on February 24th is already gone. Their ground forces. Now, I'm trying to figure out exactly what kind of numbers they're working with, but that's somewhere between 40 to 60,000 troops in some capacity gone, whether incapacitated, wounded, or killed. What unbelievable. Again, this is more than 4 to 6 times as many people were lost in 10 years in Afghanistan, and that absolutely sank the Soviet Union. Guys, this is huge. The Russian people still don't know. Pray that they know what's happening. One of the things, the Ukrainian Security Service, they were the ones who, Kirill Budanov, who's the head of that, he said yesterday, he was the one who announced that Putin is dying of cancer, that a coup was underway. He said today, or I guess, this morning, I guess, that he said that they are, that the war will be done by the end of the year, and by August, there will be a fundamental turning point in the war. And he has a good record for actually stating what's going to happen. Sometimes I think it's because he causes it to happen when he says these things, but still, that is really encouraging. But again, we've got a long way to go to August, right? May, June, July, August. So we've got about 3 months until the middle of August. 3 months is a long time. We're already almost 3 months in, so it's a total of 6 months. Pray for the encouragement, the strengthening of the international community to stand with them. And I got some good news on that. The G7 Secretaries of Defense met, and this is their unified statements. This is, guys, remember what we've been asking for. They declared, 1, millions of people will starve to death unless Russia unblocks the Ukrainian ports, and they've condemned Russia for causing the crisis. This is such a clear statement to the entire world. This is what we've been asking for, that Ukraine wouldn't be thrown under the bus for the famine, the potential famine and food crisis. Another thing they said is Olaf Scholz, Germany's chancellor, has declared that Putin is in transit. In other words, he is utterly unwilling to negotiate. Again, incredibly important, because as long as people think they can negotiate a ceasefire, that just to give away Ukrainian territory and Ukrainian people and let Russia off the hook, that there's going to be a problem. But they recognize he won't negotiate. Third, arms. The G7 countries will supply weapons to Ukraine for as long as necessary. Wow. Good. Again, they've got to be in it for the long haul. Fourth, sanctions. They said that they will continue to increase joint and economic and political pressure and expand sanctions against the Russian Federation, including in sectors critical to the Russian economy. Yes. Keep it going. Yes. Hey, yes, Paul, thank you so much. That's right. If you would share this, it would make a huge deal. And when you do so, if you can make it public, you can do that even if you have a private page. This will really help us get the word out. Thank you. The fifth area that they were united on was criticizing Belarus and calling on its authorities to stop allowing Russian aggression. That's great language, and it's so dead on, and it's keeping the pressure. And the final one, and this is the key in the coffin, in addition, they urged China not to help Russia in avoiding or circumventing sanctions. Yes. So these are literally, about the only point they didn't make was about atrocities. But every other point, your points we've been praying that these countries would get on board with, they would be unified on, and they are. Another one, remember, Germany has been the last to the party. They've been the slowest. They've been fighting every step of the way, refusing to speak out against um, Russia. And yet, listen to this. Otto Schultz had a very long phone call with Putin, and this is what he says he told Putin. There must be a ceasefire as soon as possible, and that the claim that Nazis are in power is false. I mean, that's speaking as a German. That's pretty, I think he would know. And the third is he reminded Putin about Russia's responsibility for the global food crisis. It's his fault. That's awesome. Again, Germany is standing strong. The final piece of really good news has to do with arms. And Germany is, so we've talked about this throughout the war. One of the huge problems has been that Ukraine does not have high altitude anti-aircraft and anti-missile capability, meaning that high altitude bombers can bomb with impunity. Now they've come up with some incredibly creative ways to get at some of those things, but still it has left them vulnerable. And we've been praying from day one for things like a Patriot. We did pray for Starstreak, and they gave Starstreak, but Starstreak only goes up to, I think, about 12,000 feet. And we've got these guys coming in at like 48,000 feet. This is huge. Germany is saying that they are considering sending the IRIS-T SLM surface-to-air missile system. This goes up to 12 miles, 60,000 feet. Come on. This is huge. This is huge. Pray that comes. The final piece is UK. UK, you guys remember a long time ago we talked about the UK agreed to send Brimstone missiles. Well, the anti-ship missiles. Well, the thing about it, and they've got a great range, like 20 kilometers. But the thing, which is very important because Ukraine now has no functional fleet. So how are they going to get Russian ships, right? So those Brimstone anti-ship missiles, the problem is they were designed to be launched from airplanes or from ships. So trust the Ukrainians, they came up with an inventive way of creating a truck mounting, and they are using them in the field already. And that's a huge, huge shift, again, because Russia has been using that Navy with impunity. And so God is on the move. There are so many huge things that are happening, so many places where we're seeing, the Russians either held or pushed back. There's a huge offensive happening right now towards Izium from the Kharkov direction. There is a huge, they're also trying to push towards Vovchansk and Kupinsk, which are those huge military depot and train supply lines. So continue to pray for those breakthroughs, but also continue to pray for Mariupol. Mariupol, again, those negotiations for those evacuations are underway. They are saying that they might declare as soon as today a referendum on Mariupol becoming a part of Russia. Guys, this is a huge way that Russia attempts to legitimize and then keep the world from fighting. But the great thing is the world, especially Europe, has declared we will not recognize anything other than the existing international boundaries of Ukraine, and that includes Crimea. So praise God for that, but still they're pushing hard. The Kherson authorities are also trying to become part of Russia. They're saying they don't even want a referendum, they just want to be absorbed by Russia. So pray for that, because again, any area that Russia occupies, atrocities are happening. Like we saw in Bucha, like we saw that, they are, just face it. And so continue to pray that the word about what's happening in occupied territories continues to come to light. Also continue to pray for Snake Island. You guys remember that's that island at the beginning of the war. That's the island that they continue, that Russia keeps trying to install anti-aircraft and anti-missile batteries with radar systems there. Every time they get stuff on there, Ukraine is bombing them out, but there's signs that they have managed to get a bunch of paratroopers on there, and they're attempting to supply them and get some facilities in place. Pray the Ukrainians can take that out. That's very critical, because if they can do that, then the Navy can operate with some measure, the Russian Navy can operate with some measure of impunity in that area around Odessa, and possibly even launch an amphibious assault. So that's absolutely key. Pray that that gets taken out. One of the interesting things I failed to mention a couple days ago is that the Russian Navy, that all submarines have left Sevastopol. So there are 7 Russian submarines in the Black Sea fleet. When the war began, 2 of them were still in the Mediterranean. They shouldn't have been able to come back through the Bosphorus because Turkey was blocking that, but no telling. But somewhere between 5 and 7 submarines are now in operation in the Black Sea. Why is that important? They're relatively invisible, right? They can avoid the Neptune and the Brimstone missiles, but also they use them for targeted missile launches on particular civilian targets, like we saw with Lvov. There were huge military facilities to the west of Lvov that were hit with missiles. We're not sure where those are coming from, but that's a big piece. So pray that those subs get found and somehow get stopped. We haven't seen any sub warfare up to this point. We've seen subs attacking with missiles, but we haven't seen any counter sub warfare. So pray for wisdom and understanding of how to get at that. Also pray, the fighting is very fierce on the Zaporozhye front, on the Hulia Polia. The wonderful thing is that's like a tiny little nothing in the middle of nowhere, and so huge amount of fighting with very few people around. Praise God for that, but pray that the Ukrainians don't just hold, but push back there. It's very key. Also, in Donetsk, there has been the tiniest bit of movement for the Russians in terms of the city of Avdiivka. And so Avdiivka, they've been fighting for weeks, and they have managed to push, and the Ukrainians have fallen back to other defensive positions. Pray for them to hold fast, because the Russians are raining down thermobaric weapons. They're just raining down everything. They need some sort of a victory, and they can't have it. They mustn't have it. All right. Continue to pray, because for Chernihiv and Sumy, as across the Bryansk and Kursk borders, they're moving up artillery and attempting to fire on them again. Pray for them. And finally, pray for the church. Guys, the church is just continuing to rise up. It's so much fun, to join with the Church Благовестия in April for their service. I know it's in Russian. I encourage you to pick it up, and you can listen to the worship. Just really enjoy. Facebook might even translate it for you. But just so powerful to stand alongside them as they worship, as they praise God, as they serve Him, continuing with joy and hope to serve the least of these, but also to give sacrificially, to work day and night, to go into dangerous areas, to bring the supplies needed to bring the gospel everywhere they go. Guys, what a privilege we get to partner with them. And especially if you've been giving, I really encourage you, check out their Facebook page, or Vladimir or Lilia's Facebook page, the pastors. Again, you can go to ariselife.org/helpukraine. You can find all the information. You can find their Facebook pages there. But also you can find out how to give. Again, the need is not drying up. In fact, it's increasing as fuel becomes more scarce, as supplies become more expensive. The needs also continue to grow. So please consider giving to what God is doing through the Church Благовестия or Good News in Dnipro. But also, if you want these in a print form, as always, there's like 5 or 6 pages each day. I only go through about a couple pages. If you're interested in that, go to ariselife.org/Ukraine. Final piece I want to say is one of our dear friends from New Zealand picked up on as we were praying for Daniel to arise. And, and maybe you remember yesterday I was talking about the 4 emperors, the year of the 4 emperors, AD 69. and this sense that if Putin was taken out, this vacuum could cause massive warfare within Russia, which would cause real chaos. It would not be good for the people of Russia, let alone for Ukraine. And this friend, I'm so sorry, I've forgotten your name. She commented on the Facebook page, I believe from New Zealand, saying she really was praying for strategy. That's one of the things I really encourage you is you see a need. Again, you can't pray for everything. Pray specifically what God puts on your heart. But ask God what's His best in that situation. What are His strategies? And this person began to pray, well, where could this Daniel come from? And they were reminded of Dvornikov. And Dvornikov is the general who is now over the entire invasion. And he's called the Butcher of Syria. Not much of a candidate for a Daniel, right? But they were reminded that perhaps could we not pray for him to have a Saul of Tarsus moment? And the interesting thing is, I didn't mention this yesterday, but of the four emperors, the one who ended up ruling and setting up a new dynasty at the end was Vespasian, who was the general who oversaw the destruction of Jerusalem, in the same way Dvornikov oversaw the destruction of Aleppo. And Vespasian was he was extremely he was ruthless in a practical way. You know, you give me an impossible task, I'm going to achieve it by whatever means are necessary. And Dvornikov, for all evidence, is similar in that. You ask me to do an impossible task, I'll do it. Ruthless, but not in a celebrating torture kind of way. And so pray. I thought that was a fascinating prayer strategy to pray for Dvornikov to have, because he's by all intents he's a stable, smart, intelligent man. But pray for him to have encounters. But pray for throughout the Russian system that a Daniel would arise, that the dogs of war would turn on themselves, turn on each other, Kadyrov and Girkin, and even the FSB, and that in the end, all of Russia would be free for the gospel, free of oppression. That Ukraine would be set afire with the gospel in such a way that they would bring the gospel even to the prisoners, the Russian soldiers, and the soldiers themselves would become the missionaries of the gospel into Russia. Pray that Ukraine continues to be delivered from rage, and that is so natural, right? That they would in turn, they would come around, they'd flip it, and they would come with love. And just the violence of love, setting the Russian people free, that the Ukrainians, that Russia's attempting to slave Ukraine, but Ukraine in the end would be the one that liberates Russia. Guys, he's on the move. He's on the move. We love you guys. Again, we'd love for you to join us today. We're in a few hours, about 3 hours, we're going to be having our service, and we'd love for you to join us. Jump on. But also, if you need prayer for anything, it's a crazy day. But if you need prayer for anything, just say need prayer, and our team would love to have a chance to pray for you. Or if you'd like to be part of one of the men's or women's groups, say men's or women's groups, and they would like. I see Gary here. Gary Phillips is over our men's group, and they'll reach out to you and give you the details. But guys, again, so grateful to you all. And finally, again, since we're getting on at a strange time, if you could help us by sharing, liking, comment, make this share public, that'd be awesome. If you want to give, consider go to ariselife.org/help Ukraine. Have a great day.